It is the Fulhamish podcast, your independent voice of Fulham FC. My name's Sammy James. Welcome to the show. No Kevin puns for this introduction. I used all of those on the quick take. Today, we will discuss Fulham's 1-0 win over Leeds United at the Cottage, our first Premier League W of the season. And what a lovely feeling it was to spend Saturday evening safe in the knowledge that Fulham have got 3 points on the board. We'll look back at the game, and yes, a certain Brazilian winger will be mentioned at length. And we've got some fantastic questions from the Fulhamish Telegram group. I am joined today from the States by Charlie Kipp. Hello.
Hey, Sammy, how are you?
Good, thank you. Don Betts, hello.
Hello, mate.
And Joe Gunning joins us for another pod. How you doing, Joe?
I'm good. Thank you for having me.
Pleasure. Dom, it feels like old times. Would you mind doing some 3-word reviews for us?
Yeah, no worries. We'll start over on X. Richard Kaufman with Kevin from Heaven. I think you can see the which way these are going to be going. Rick Cardis with Stairway to Kevin. Christian Hale with Kevin's good debut. Over to Instagram, we had Gary Stanley with Good One Son. Dean Morell with Goodness Gracious Me. Ted Mansour with Snatch and Drab. And over to Facebook, we have Janet Archibald with Thank You Leeds, William Harrison with Feels Like Kevin, and Jason Williams finishing us off with Behold King Kevin.
Very nice. Yeah, I said no Kevin puns in the introduction. I did not promise no Kevin puns in the 3-word reviews.
I don't think we'd have had enough to fill the section, to be honest.
Yeah. And honestly, I think everyone would have been thoroughly disappointed. Kip, I'll start with you. A terrible match of football. I mean, it says something. I was just watching the Match of the Day highlights again before we did the podcast, and the commentator was absolutely scathing about the quality of football, and he was being paid to be there. So for us that actually paid to be there, it was quite the ordeal. Obviously, early morning start for you. I think the key question is, did you manage to stay awake?
It was a bit of a struggle, I'll admit, especially the fact that it was the first 30, 45 minutes that were particularly drab. Ultimately, it's one of those where I was just happy that we were in a position at the very end to capitalize and to get something. It's all the things we've largely talked about before, whether it's Fulham fresh off an international break, Fulham in games where they probably should be winning. We were somewhat had that giant slayer mentality to an extent last year. When we play one of those big 6 teams, we always seem more up for it. Whereas when we play, the Southampton away last year, I believe it was, or maybe it was at home, but Southampton last year just felt like a team where it was this type of thing. The ones where the fan base expects the team to kind of come out and take something are the ones where they look the least up for it. And whether that affects the final result or not, is neither here nor there, but I get why Marco made the decisions he made to run back virtually the exact same 11 he's always been doing. We kind of know that's how Marco operates, but no, it was a struggle. And I think we're allowed to say that, obviously. It's just because the end was a great ending doesn't mean we have to celebrate what was a pretty heinous match of football. But glad we got something out of it in the end.
Yeah, I mean, you are making a good point there, though, Kippo. Obviously, last year, the 3 home games against the 3 promoted and relegated clubs, we got 1 win and 2 draws. We do need to improve on that. That is 4 points we left on the table last season. It wouldn't have actually been the difference to get us into Europe because of what happened, but it very much could have been. We have to take these points as and when they come. Joe, Marcus Silva complained that Fulham were too slow in the first half. And I mean, it is something that we're quite used to now with Fulham. We do with this Berger-Lukic partnership. We might come onto that particular partnership and whether changes might be necessary a bit later on. But it's kind of same old in lots of ways. We do start slow. We are quite conservative. I mean, we didn't have a shot in the first half, let alone a shot on target. That would have been way too much to ask for. We didn't actually try one that went 30 yards over the bar. It was pretty insipid, and Leeds looked much more likely to score.
Yeah, it was poor. It was boring. I was stood there kind of distracted, not wanting to watch the football itself. I think you mentioned that Lukic Berger pivot, and the thing is, it's so defensive. And if you're playing that Lukic Berger pivot, you need to expect to win duels in the middle. And I don't think we were winning enough duels. I don't think we were winning enough second balls. And that's been something that I've thought quite a bit this season, that it's sort of a midfield mentality of not really going after these balls, and that's losing us possession. And therefore Leeds, for large parts of that first half, had more possession than us, as you say, more chances than us. And last season, like you mentioned, the struggling against promoted sides, it was because these teams are happy to sit back and they're happy to come and play for a point. And that's why we signed direct wingers. And we saw, obviously, we'll touch on Kevin later, but we saw when he came on, a winger who's happy to take on his man, how much of an impact that made. And it did look like we're struggling from the same things that we struggled with last season in the exact same way. Like we knew last season that it was a problem, and it looked a little bit like it hadn't been addressed. Where I was really expecting Kevin to be starting, not just because he's had 2 weeks to train with Marco Silva, but also because he suits what we need for this game so much more. A player who will go and try and unlock the defenses. And we just looked really, really out of ideas in that first half. Like whenever Iwobi got the ball or Wilson got the ball, I just couldn't see chances being created. I can't see Iwobi taking on his man and beating him enough. Like I just couldn't see where the chances were going to come from. And I think that's why there inevitably wasn't any.
Yeah, and Muniz in the middle was just outmarked, not by brilliant defending, just basically was outmuscled by Pascal Stroud most of the game. Dom, surely this you must have been in the 20s of when you went down for a pint in that first half. Was it in the 20 to 30 range? Or was
I knew when I'd be going before the game started. I'd give Beku his minute's applause because I did know him, and then I was going to go for a pint, and that is exactly what happened.
Very good. Yeah, no, in the 30s. That's totally fair enough. You missed literally.
But if it wasn't for the minute's applause, it probably would have been in the 20s.
Oh, okay. Yes. No. And it was a beautiful minute's applause for Beku. And yeah, I really hope that was something that his friends and family appreciated, because the Cottage all came together, as we always do in those moments. And yeah, a wonderful minute's applause and credit for the club for picking up on that and also making it go on the big screens, which always helps the buy-in, and beautifully respected from what I could tell from the Leeds supporters down at the other end. The second half rolled around, Charlie. We did look better, which wasn't hard. The game also improved. I still never felt massively confident, though, that a goal was coming. Obviously, Harry Wilson had a good free kick, well saved by Darlow. I don't think I realised the deflection. That made it so much harder for Darlow. It's an incredible save. Muniz possibly should have done a little bit better for that header as well. Sander Berger's finally going to get his assist, right? In 2 games, he set up Josh King for a goal that never was, and then he put one on a plate for Rodrigo Muniz. Sander must be there going like, what do I need to do to get myself one of these little assists?
Yeah, I think in general in the second half, it was sure steps in the right direction. But my second half analysis is more a comment I want to make quickly about kind of the Marco strategy and things that we've talked about for a long time here regarding how he's Mr. Master substitution maker and master, tinker as the game goes on. We've become Substitution FC, which, by the way, has done well for us in the grand scheme of things. I'm not here to severely knock it, but it becomes a bit annoying, candidly, after a while that is every game going to have to be waiting until the 65th, 75th minute for us to be like, okay, now we're actually going to have our best chance? I understand the argument that people make, which is if you have your best thing going in the last 20, 30 minutes of a game, particularly when you're facing tired defenders, you have optimal chances of score. I get the logic wholly. Having said that, over the course of a 38-match season, is that really, you're like, yeah, we go out every game, and when there's a third or a quarter of it left, we have a really good chance of scoring and winning. I'm like, there's 3/4 of the game you're missing there, my friend. Again, I know that's a little bit cynical. I recognize that there's a lot more going on than that. I'm not trying to make it oversimplified. But I do, at a certain point, have an issue with if we're not the substitution masters, let's become the starting lineup masters to a certain extent. Again, I'm going to keep caveating myself, but that basically is the thing that comes in with me is I get a little bit frustrated watching us always come to life seemingly in the last quarter of the game, because it just feels like if there is that much talent, if we do have that much ability, if we really kind of construct and put the Lego bricks together in the right way, are you really telling me there's not a way we could probably be more on the front foot from the off? So that's my kind of overwhelming second half thought, because I'm only saying that because that's what I thought the whole second half. I'm like, oh, here we go. Here comes Emil Smith-Rowe. He's going to play well. We're gonna look a little bit better. Kevin, who maybe we'll talk about in this podcast at some point, but there's just certain elements of that really rung true with me as I watched that second half. So forgive the somewhat deviation of your question, but those are my second half thoughts sort of summarized.
I mean, Joe, a Fulham player starting the match still hasn't scored a goal this season. There's 2 substitutes and an own goal. I mean, I think even if you include the cup game, it's only Raul who scored against Bristol City. Obviously, we know that Josh King was cruelly denied, and we have to accept that should have been a goal, and we know that. But yeah, I agree with Kippo to a point. We can't play 38 games of being substitute FC.
No, and I think that there are positives to be drawn from it in the way that it shows the mentality of our team. A lot of teams have players who just wouldn't be happy to be left on the bench. And of course, all our players want to start, but they're so willing to come on and make an impact. And I saw a clip of Anthony Robinson talking in the Riverside stand post-game, and he was kind of reiterating that fact that, look, and he said, we, like as a collective, are so happy to come off the bench. And when we do, we want to make that impact. But look, even though that is a great thing, as you say, we can't go 38 games relying until Marco Silva makes some changes in the last 30 minutes. We need some goals to come from players actually on the pitch. And I think the way that we've set up so far in every game, of course, Josh King, as you say, unlucky, but it's just not looked like goals are going to come. I think whenever Muniz has started, he's looked really crowded out, not really been given kind of much service at all. I can't think of too many big chances that we've blundered in recent matches. Of course, you mentioned that Muniz header. He probably should have done better with that one, but the chances just aren't being created early enough. And I think with the admission of Kevin and Chukwueze into the starting team, I think that will help kind of create more chances from the off.
I mean, Dom, it's just a bit sterile, isn't it? That was Jack's word on the quick take. Not just, we know the Berger Lukic pivot is hardly, full throttle football, but even the left-hand side as well, like Sessegnon and Iwobi, both good players. I respect both of them, but neither of them get you off your seat. And even on the right side, Kenny's good, but Harry Wilson just flatters to deceive a little bit. It is quite mundane.
Yeah, I feel like my comments after this Leeds game I was pretty much saying similar things I said to when England won 5-0 away in Serbia, is that if we moving on to the Kevin situation, it was a bit, what my comments were about Madueke was just it was just nice seeing a winger attack instead of, because I think the inning comparison I made is if you've got Foden, Saka, Palmer, it's all just a bit dilly-dally and tip-tappy. Yeah. Whereas if you've got of Gordon and Mweke for England, for example, it's direct wingers who are attacking. And I think to pretty touch on Kevin, that's something we haven't seen at Fulham. If you look, Traore should be doing that, but he doesn't seem to do that. And then you've got Wilson and Iwobi who are never really driving at their man. I mean, there's not many wingers in football who really take on their man at the moment. They're all quite instantly trying to find a bit of space. And I think that's what we did see. I think, especially when you've got two in midfield who are very much kind of sitting there and not driving forces in the centre of the park. I think tactically and the players that we started, that's what we were going to see, especially against a low block that Leeds were playing. Joe mentioned earlier about not winning many duels in the first half, and I think that would have been fairly obvious going into the game, considering Leeds' transfer strategy this summer was, unless you're over 6 foot, we're not going to sign you. So they're quite obviously going to win the physical battles there. So I think the substitutions, as we've seen, did work, but I think they could have been done a lot earlier. I was surprised that nothing really happened earlier on in the game, because it was crying out for the changes that did eventually get made.
Yeah, I mean, there was one moment where it was the second half, that started. I just blinked and then it was the 60th minute. It was the weirdest experience ever. Just 15 minutes of my life just disappeared in front of my eyes, and I don't really know where it went. I don't know if I blacked out. I don't know if I went into a little 15-minute little coma, but something happened. And it's all of a sudden, so I was like, oh, all right, yeah, 60 minutes, 0-0 still. Nothing's happened in this football match. Let's talk about Kevin. And no, sorry, I did it. I didn't even mean that pun. Didn't even mean it, but it's going to happen a lot this season. I mean, Joe, the atmosphere at the Cottage, all second half, people were chanting, get Kevin on. And at first I thought, oh, okay, this is a bit, I don't know if I agree with this, like quite this soon. But apart from the fact I was in that little coma, it's maybe one of the few things I do remember happening in that period. I'm trying to remember the last signing that the Fulham fans were that excited for. I want to say maybe Brian Ruiz type, like anticipation.
Ruiz or Berbatov even. But even I don't think there was that much of a clamour because Berbatov was only in his latter days. But yeah, it was...
Berbatov's a great shout, actually. That first game he played for us after deadline day,
against
although
West Brom,
he started, so maybe there was just not that clamour because he'd been on the bench. But the excitement in the stadium, it was... I don't know, it was as if the Pope was being wheeled out. It was amazing.
Yeah, it was so good. And I was a part of that crowd of just willing him to come on. I personally wanted him to start the game. I understand why he didn't. I know that's perhaps not Marco's forte, but oh my gosh, when he came on, I mean, it's like you can see why we've spent so much money on him, and that's refreshing knowing we've spent a lot of money on a player and it looks like it's working out for the better. What I left the game saying to my mates was, this is, as a football fan, when you're paying money to go and watch football, of course you're paying money to go and watch your team win, and that's very important. But we're all fans of football, and we want to be paying money to see players that it's enjoyable to watch play football. And Kevin is the sort of player that I want to go and spend £40 on a ticket to go and watch play. Like, the last time I think that I actually felt like excited to watch a Fulham player play was Willian in that first season. There was a few month period where it was like, oh my gosh, like we get to watch Willian play football today. And I'm going into next week against Brentford just so excited to watch Kevin play. And I think that's fantastic. I mean, every time he got on the ball, it looked like he was making something happen. I saw a stat that he completed the most dribbles in the game. I think put the most balls into the box in the game, perhaps. And he only played 15 minutes. Like, it was, not only was he exciting, but he was productive as well. And it was so refreshing to see after we've gone through what might be years of wingers not taking on their men. I think Reece Nelson showed promise of that he was perhaps going to be capable of doing that, but obviously kind of bogged down by injuries. But Kevin just looked already like the complete project. And that was his first 15 minutes in the Premier League. Like, I'm just so excited to see, and I think all Fulham fans, like you say, the buzz in the stadium I was turning to people around me and going, oh my gosh, who on earth have we signed? Like, it's like we've actually signed like the second coming of Neymar. It was just ridiculous. I kept waiting for him to make a mistake and go, oh, all right, that's all right. But it just didn't come. It was, and I can't think of many better first impressions on a player's debut. It was absolutely incredible.
I mean, Charlie, what is kind of blowing my mind here is that we are a team that finished 11th in the Premier League last year. And it's as if we're Crawley Town and we've signed like Harry Kane. The way like Sessegnon is going like, oh my God, Kevin, warm. And obviously Tom Kearney said he's like the second coming of Pele. I'm like, this is Premier League players being overawed by a player. Like, how good is this fella? Like, I would get it if we were a League Two club. We suddenly, I don't know, signed the old Robinho or something like that. But it's just so funny. Like, that everyone is so overawed. Maybe that's just the kind of where we'd got to with the squad. I don't know. I mean, it's got to be good. And you know, Joe made the good point about Willian, right? And I remember always thinking with Willian, it's been brilliant to have him, but imagine if we'd have got like Willian 10 years ago. Well, like, have we?
Maybe. I mean, you guys all get those comparisons. Biggest signing since Johan Malo for me, no question.
Last time
let's not go that far.
Ollie Norwood, take your pick. Look, I think that it is potentially an indictment on the scouting department of 19 other Premier League clubs. No, like, the fact of the matter is he looks an absolute baller, and that's amazing. And I believe it was Jack or you, I want to make sure I attribute quickly in the quick take, who basically said, look, you know, he will have his lumps. He will have his kind of frustrations. I think there's a certain inevitability to that. But in the meantime, just to see the instant impact, and I think, Dom, your point was really salient about wingers who want to be direct and want to contribute. I think just as a fan, it was so refreshing. It was like a cold glass of water on a hot summer day to be like, oh my God, look, there's the player that we've been calling for, and he's delivering. He's trying something. He's doing things. He's making such a visible, visceral impact on the flow, tenor, cadence of the match that it was just so incredible to see. I agree. I very much hope he starts versus Brentford. I think he can hopefully quickly become a fixture, even if that means there is a longer, percentage and higher chance that he does make a few mistakes. I think we'd probably all make that trade right now, just in order to see a team who is a little more vibrant when they're playing football. I was pretty stunned to see that he wasn't included in the starting lineup as a fan. If I put my Marco Silva hat on, I ultimately understand it. I think there's a certain level of yeah, fair enough. We kind of sort of seen that coming, but to quickly be the token American in the room for a second, that is an entirely un-American concept. Might I add, in football is the betting in period, whether it's NFL, baseball, basketball, hockey, you name it. Being serious for a second, there is no such thing as betting in period in American sports. If you, in basketball or American football, if you trade for a player or sign a player, they are playing the next day. It is just, and again, maybe I don't maybe that's not wise. Maybe NFL could take a page out of football's playbook and give maybe there'd be a benefit to that. But when I see these, and again, it's across the board with basically all of the players Silva brings in, and maybe wider than that. But I've always just found it fascinating, and I get that team tactics are so heavily unique and so heavily drilled that there's probably elements to that I could be respectful of. But when I woke up early and saw that he wasn't in the lineup, I was like, oh, you've got to be kidding me. But at least we're rewarded. And what was it, the 89th or 90th minute shot where he kind of cut outside of the box, played a lovely 1-2, and I mean, when that ball left his foot, I was like, this is I'm feeling all the feelings. My soul is about to leave my body. God, I wanted that one to go in, but overall amazing.
Yeah, he entered the Manor Solomon zone. Didn't quite find the corner like Manor did, but it was his first appearance. I mean, Tom, to kind of build on Charlie's point, we had this comment on Instagram when Fulhamish put out the lineup on Saturday from Alan Cargill, who said if we signed Mbappe, he'd be on the bench for a month. It's quite true, isn't it? I love Marco, but I feel like he's got more conservative as the years have gone on.
Yeah, I think I said that when I was in the pub and the team lineups came out, because it's not like Chukwueze, where obviously he's been on international duty with Nigeria and has come back and has only been in Moss Park for a day. Like Kevin's been training for 2 weeks during this period. So I think I found it surprising just for the fact that I get it. Silva doesn't like to immediately put players into the starting 11, but we've needed something to freshen up the team, and Kevin was the answer to that. But I think. As I think I kind of agree with Charlie in the fact that, from a fan perspective, you just can't really understand it. But as soon as you're like, oh no, yeah, Marco, to be fair, never does this with anyone. As I say, you can make triple sign of Mbappe, Kane and Bellingham, and all three would be on the bench and would come in the 75th minute. But I think you can see why Marco has been wanting to sign him all window. And I think hopefully, as I said, he starts in that game against Brentford and can see what he's like from the off.
Yeah, I mean, also, though, I guess the problem is Alex Iwobi, right? And I need to find this stat, but someone told me on Saturday that I think Iwobi, since he joined, is Marco's most used player or something along those lines, or he's been on the bench the least, or outfield, obviously, I think Bernardo would be number one in that regard. And so I think there's an interesting question as to what happens to Alex Iwobi here, and maybe it's one that we delve into after the break, because I just want to kind of finish the game analysis. And Joe, Gabriel Gudmundsson's header, I mean, it'll go down in own goal folklore. We've actually had some pretty epic own goals at the Cottage over the years. I was trying to rack my brains to this. Obviously, Kolo Touré scored a pretty special one for Liverpool. I believe it's the season we went down, and I think Mullenstein might have been in charge for that game. We lost 3-2, and he sliced one into his own net. I think it might have been the same season where Vincent Kompany also scooped one into his own net. Lewis Dunk scored a pretty special own goal the first season we came up, and he absolutely thundered it past the Brighton keeper. I think that was the game we won 2-1 pretty early on in the season. But Joe, I think this may go to the top of the list. I've watched it so many times. I put a tweet about it, which has gone fairly viral amongst the Leeds fan base, most of whom are just kind of in disbelief over the moment and how on earth it happened. Just hits his head. I've never seen anything like it. And, a couple of people were like, you've obviously never played competitive football. I'm like, yeah, I mean, true. But at the same time, like, he's a professional footballer. He has enough time to react. He just kind of stands there and takes it. It's like a UFO landing. I don't think we'll ever see something like that again.
Yeah, it was ridiculous. I actually thought at first that, just like Gentleman Jim had, that Kearney had headed it and then it had taken a deflection, like an unlucky deflection. And it was only when I'd left and watched kind of the highlights back on my phone, I just kind of thought, wait a second, what has actually happened there? Because it's not even like, with most unfortunate own goals, they've tried to like boot it over the bar or they've tried to head it clear. He doesn't aim his header whatsoever. It just kind of like plonks on his head and it was one of them ones, as kind of cliche as it sounds, where you're stood behind the goal and the ball actually does sort of seem to move in slow motion. Like it kind of just slowly like seemed to rise over the goalkeeper and just fall into the goal. I mean, what a moment. I guess they all count the same. It was absolutely perfect. A great ending. I don't think deserved. I think maybe the points should have been shared, but yeah, some fairy tale ending, I suppose.
Yeah, I'm going to jump in quickly. I have two reactions to that, completely separate, but hopefully both worth sharing. The one is, so I obviously watch every game on television. It's hard to walk across an ocean. But I have my system where I sync up my NBC and Peacock television. I mute it, and then I listen to the Gentleman Jim and Jamie commentary for every game because I cannot be bothered by the commentators that the American soccer powers that be pick to call these games. That's a separate conversation for a separate podcast with potentially Ben Jarman. You should check it out. It's called Full America.
Do check it out.
But so I yelled out, probably waking up my entire apartment block. My wife's like, what happened? I'm like, Tom Kearney has just scored, because, silly me trusting Gentleman Jim to be accurate with his analysis. I love the guy. Could have been more wrong. That's okay. So shout out Tom Kearney for at least being somewhat involved. And, from a practical footballing standpoint, maybe Gudmundsson genuinely thought when Kearney and whomever it was from the Leeds side went up for that aerial duel, someone would get a nick. It doesn't seem like it really came off either of them. I mean, maybe if you go to super slow-mo. But the other element, and this was quickly touched on as well in the quick take, that I actually want to disagree with is I do believe in a little bit of sporting karma and a little bit of sporting justice. And I agree with Joe's point that neither team really deserved a point. But in the wake of the Josh King abject travesty, abject robbery that occurred, and I do think it tends to play out more over a 38-game season than a match-to-match, like literally happening one game later. But I was a little bit of like, yeah, there is some cosmic justice in that. And, to the extent that that's really a thing, like maybe it isn't. But I kind of, when the game was over and we were celebrating and feeling like, man, we should not have come away with anything, and we did, I was like, okay, I think the footballing gods, we can kind of call this one somewhat all square now. Like I feel like we've sort of been vindicated to an extent. I do subscribe to that.
I was just going to say, perhaps Gudmundsson is just a pillar of fair play, and he saw what happened the other week and thought, you know what, I'm going to set the record straight here. And just, maybe we'll see more of it from him this season.
Be the change you wish to see in the world type of defender.
He's anti-Leeds. He's anti-Leeds.
He is a good man. That is so. There we go. God, I said no terrible puns, and I've just done one. I mean, Dom, up in the annals of. It's weird. It's such a forgettable match, but I do think that is one of those goals that now will come around year after year. Of like, can you remember when Fulham won a game with the weirdest own goal ever scored?
Yeah, I was speaking to my dad on Sunday night, and I was like, I think if he tried that again, I don't think he could have pinged it into the top corner as well as he did. Because I knew it clearly had come off at least player, wasn't quite seeing what actually happened, because I could see none of our players were anywhere near him. And the next thing I know, the ball was just pinged into the top corner, sitting at the back of H5. But yeah, it was just crazy. I said, as you mentioned, it's not like other own goals where you swiped at it and it's, you've mistimed it, it's looped over the back of your goalkeeper. Like, he's kind of just falling back in slow motion. It's hit him on the head, I was talking to my dad last night. We were trying to look at like what was the actual plan here? Like, what's he trying to do? Because it's not like he's trying to flick it away behind him. Is he trying to head it back to the keeper? Like,
I honestly think he's absolutely dumbfounded that no one gets a touch, and he just doesn't react, and it just hits him on the bonce. And with such power, it's honestly, he said he couldn't try it again. I think he'd have it 1,000 times. I don't know if Brian McBride had scored that header, like one of Fulham's most famous great headers of the ball, I think we'd have put it in the top 3. Like, it's that good from there. I
don't think any of our players score a header from there from a corner.
No, I thought the same. I thought that there's not one of our players that I'd have rather been in that position than Gudmundsson. Like, obviously, he scored in the end, so it's easy to say that. But genuinely, I think put any of our players there, they would have struggled to get their head on that and direct it into the goal. So thank God for Gudmundsson. Thank Gudmundsson.
Oh my word! It will just go all down. The only the other own goal that I always love, that I think, like, if you watch one of those kind of Premier League bloopers, can you remember Santiago Vergini's own goal? I think he played for Sunderland and it was against Southampton, and it's such a good goal. Like, he absolutely whacks it on the volley, like clean into the inside netting. And yeah, I think it goes up. I genuinely think it's that good an own goal. I saw Daniel Farke's interview afterwards, and he was obviously gutted and heartbroken, and he had a good game as well. Like, he dealt with Adama Traore. He was absolutely fine down the left hand side. I guess football can be a cruel sport, but as you attest to, Charlie, I don't necessarily think Leeds owed us any luck, but we were owed some luck. And to get 3 points on the board and just to be away from that. I mean, it's an interesting point, Charlie. Had we not won, had we drawn 0-0, the pressure going into next week would have been huge, right? And I wouldn't, it would have meant a derby. It's already must win, but it would have been must win because of the league predicament. Then you're away to Aston Villa. I think it would have started to get a little bit messy without a win on Saturday.
Unequivocally. I mean, it would have been, look, it is rational people, of which football fans are famously not, and I would include myself in the not rational category right away, would say the old adages of don't look at the table for 5-10 games. The season hasn't really started in earnest. There's so much time to get points, blah, blah, blah. But like, let's all be honest. We wouldn't be rational and measured and considerate about it. We'd be like, this is bad. We are in dire straits here. And so just the peace of mind that being air quotes mid-table affords at this time, despite leading for about 2 minutes this season, to be sitting in our rightful home there at 11th, a loss, a win, 2 draws, kind of like a nice warm sweater of comfort of like, this is exactly where we're meant to be. Just everything is about normal in the world, and that's okay. But yeah, no, I struggle to think. I mean, it's been really easy to kind of compartmentalize it, given we did theoretically or ultimately get the result. But had that not gone in, I just think the pressure, if we had conceded first this upcoming weekend against Brentford, like, it would have been just pure nerves and agony. And in a game that ultimately is a coin flip, it's a local derby. You can't really get an honest prediction on any of those. And who knows what will happen. But I just think, you can't put a price on peace of mind. So feels a lot better.
Yeah, thank you very much, Angel Gabriel. Right, we'll take a break there. Afterwards, we'll dive into some of your questions. The 25-26 season is shaping up to be a big one for Fulham, and one thing you need ahead of it is NordVPN, the fastest VPN on the planet that allows you to watch football matches from wherever you are in the world on either your phone, your tablet, or your laptop. For instance, you could use NordVPN to watch Premier League matches for a fraction of the price, including those 3 p.m. kickoffs that aren't available in this country. Or if you go on holiday this summer, you can use NordVPN to access your UK TV subscriptions. And right now, you can use NordVPN on up to 10 devices, which means you can share the amazing benefits that NordVPN has with your family or your friends. And you can get a great deal when you sign up to NordVPN at nordvpn.com/Fulhamish. Not only will you get a huge discount, but you'll also get 4 months extra as well. And it's entirely risk-free with Nord's 30-day money-back guarantee. So to get that special discount plus 4 free months, go to NordVPN nordvpn.com/Fulhamish. That's nordvpn.com/Fulhamish. Part 2 of the Fulhamish podcast. Sammy here with Charlie, Dom, and Joe. Please do continue to subscribe to the new Fulhamish website on Substack, fulhamish.co.uk. If you subscribe as a free subscriber, you get all of our brilliant articles and also our podcasts straight into your inbox. And I know now that I actually read most of the other Fulhamish articles just in my email. It's actually so easy. It's been such a great upgrade. Obviously, though, if you can subscribe as a paid subscriber, help continue the work we're doing, fund all of our content that we're making, then we would be hugely appreciative. You obviously will also get advert-free videos. You'll also get access to our Telegram chats, which are absolutely fantastic. Some wonderful people in the Telegram, and also really fun on a match day to be a part of it. So yeah, head to fulhamish.co.uk. We'd love to have you along on the website, either as a free or a paid subscriber. And the paid subscribers are legends, because what they do is they help keep Fulhamish free and accessible for all Fulham fans across the globe. So you really are the rock stars in our lives. Right, let's get into some of those questions. Actually, first of all, Charlie raised a really good point just in the break that we need to mention. The campaign starts now. Charlie, what is it?
Well, we were just so quickly saying that, Josh King's wrongly disallowed goal was rightly included by the club in goal of the month voting previously. And I think, let's just keep it going, baby. Let's just be meme goal of the month FC. I'm very content with that. Gudmundsson, he's getting my vote for the month of September. No question about it.
100%. I think it would be also the amount of piss, Dom, that this would boil amongst Leeds fans if Gudmundsson wins the Fulham goal of the month. I mean, obviously, it's not beyond the realms of possibility that it's the only goal of the month. Certainly from the first team. Obviously, I know they include the unders and the women's team.
We've got Wilson against Brentford next week, though, and we know that's a shoo-in.
Yeah, almost. I guess there's part of me that actually, really hopes that Fulham do score a legitimately good goal that wins goal of the month. An amazing winner against Brentford or Villa. But assuming that all the rest of the goals that we score are fairly just mundane and nothing actually special happens, us awarding Gudmundsson the goal of the month for that effort would be pretty funny. I imagine he's not going to find the funny side of it, but we can find the funny side of it.
I really hope he comes down to Graham Cottage and picks up his award.
Yeah.
Better than Villa, who I'm checking their goal of the month standings right now, and it's getting the air 404, no result. So yeah, we'll see what happens.
Although you do know what's happening. Their first goal of the season is going to be against us in about 2 weeks' time.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. There's no way. That if they don't score against Sunderland, I'm actually kind of that game on Sunday. I'm slightly willing that I don't necessarily want Villa to go smash Sunderland, because A, I quite like Sunderland, and I think B, we want a Villa side that are in bad form. But if they could lose 2-1, that would probably be quite good for us, because I don't think we want the pressure of them getting their first goal of the season against us. Goes into some questions. Today I've picked them from the Fulhamish Telegram group. This first one is by Ben Stupples. Look, it is the elephant in the room, and I think we kind of half tinkered around this subject in the first part of the pod, which was, I think, the biggest question now, and the one asked by most people after the match on Saturday, is what is the answer to our midfield conundrum? Do we play Lukic/Berger in difficult games and some other combo in easier fixtures, and if so, who? Or, to be slightly more controversial, is Berger really a first-team starter every week, or is his negative style of play better suited to sub-appearances when we want to shut up shop after getting some goals? Again, if so, what combo is the answer? Or are we literally waiting until January to get the right person? I'll come to you on this one, Dom. Obviously, Marco complained about this on Friday as well. I think some people, including myself, had maybe deduced that the club had gone for a smart, let's put Iwobi in the 8. I think Marco slightly quelled that theory. He's obviously upset that he didn't get his midfield option. It's tough, isn't it? Because I'm a real big Berger Lukic believer, and I like the solidity it gives us in most games, but even I on Saturday was having my beliefs questioned, because it really just doesn't offer any excitement, and it really means that we don't have much going forward.
Yeah, I found it remarkable that we didn't we signed a third choice striker, but not another centre midfielder when we're clearly crying out for other players in that position. You know, the only other centre midfielders in the squad are Tom Kearney and Alison Reid, which are good options to have in the squad, but you know, they're not going to be challenging really for starting position places. I just found it strange we didn't go in for anyone. I think, yeah, you need that midfielder who's going to drive the team on. And as you mentioned earlier, Lukic and Berg aren't going to do that. As you mentioned, for what is the solution in the meantime, until the January transfer window, if we decide to sign anyone in that window, that is, would be, you know, you spoke about Iwobi dropping into the 8. I could potentially see, I don't know if it will be from the start, but maybe later in games, one of Josh King or Smith Rowe dropping deeper, most likely Josh King dropping deeper to be more of an advanced 8, with then Smith Rowe dropping, playing in the number 10 position. But yeah, I just think it completely comes down to Tony Khan's inability to sign a centre midfielder when we were crying out for one all summer. And I found it, I didn't think we would sign one because we weren't really linked with them all window, whereas when it came to sort of wide players and strikers, we did see those links. So I think it just lies with the recruitment team's maybe lack of realisation that we needed a centre midfielder, because they probably see we've got 4 and other players you can slot in there, and thought we would be fine. But yeah, I found it remarkable that there wasn't some sort of plan B there to have more of a driving number 8.
I mean, Joe, what would you do here? I can't think when the next. Look, we're playing Brentford on Saturday, right? There's also other kind of games which you imagine there'll be a bit of a low block. I don't think Sunderland at home is all that far away. I know Wolves at home is in the imminent future as well. What do we do? What would you do necessarily? Because there is also the question of, I think Marco's want to get Iwobi in the team if he can. He likes him. He trusts him. I don't think Iwobi's losing the left wing spot because he's necessarily been bad. He's just not a very dynamic option. And we've also signed a wonder kid. Mm-hmm. So what would you do here?
So me personally, I've been a huge advocate for playing Iwobi as an 8 since last season as well. I think that he's so suited for playing in that 8 role. And me personally, when I'm watching football, I love an 8 who is going to drive forward and create chances. I know that our style is mainly creating chances from the wide areas, but having a player who has the capability to drive through the middle, I think is key. And as you touch upon, that Berger and Lukic don't really seem to be doing that. What I've been wondering lately is, you look at Berger at Burnley and Sheffield United, and he wasn't just defensively solid, but he was going forward as well. He'd chip in with goals, chip in with assists, and we've not seen that at all. And I think what I'm starting to ask myself lately is this a Berger issue, or is this just how Marco Silva wants his midfield to play? Does he just want 2 kind of deep-lying midfielders? Because Lukic as well, we've seen, has capabilities. We've seen it in glimpses this season where he can take the ball forward. I mean, a couple of times he's even clipped the ball past his man and got past them, something that we've not seen too often. So is it a case of Lukic and Berger aren't able to do that, or is it a case of Marco Silva doesn't want them to do that? I think, me personally, if it was me kind of in the driving seat, I would put Iwobi as the 8 and play Kevin out wide. Then it comes down to, who do you play out of Lukic and Berger? I actually don't think I've got a preference. I've been thinking about this quite a bit lately, about which one I prefer. I actually don't mind. I quite like both of them. I think both of them can kind of do a similar sort of job. Dropping King to the 8 as well, that's kind of where he was more familiar with playing in the youth setup. I don't know if perhaps he'd struggle a little bit with the physicality of playing in that role. I think Smith Rowe has been really, really good off the bench this season. I think quietly he's been one of our better players. I think every time he's come on, he's actually made a positive impact in games. So I would actually like to see him kind of given more minutes. I know that stamina is always a bit of an issue for him, but I would like to see him given more minutes. And if that means moving King to the 8, then so be it. But I do think there needs to be some sort of change, whether it's take one of Lukic and Berger out, or Silva perhaps give one of them more freedom to take the ball forwards.
Yeah. Let's go on to this question next from John Brooker. I'll come to you on this one, Charlie. A nice positive one. He says, question for podcast. Do we think that Anderson is being made captain permanently? Apart from haircut, there seems to be something different about him this season. Now, I don't know if we can answer necessarily about the captaincy, but we can talk about Joachim Anderson, because and this was mentioned on the Thursday Club by Jack and Elizabeth as well. He's really looking good, like really, really good. And there was a lot of concerns about him. I was certainly in that camp of thinking, to be honest, I thought the option had been dropped when he was for Anderson, and I thought Anderson was pretty poor on the most part for large swathes of last season, apart from maybe the very beginning. Obviously, we could go down that road again. He was good last September. But it's just, he really feels like he's settled now, and I'm much less worried about him in all aspects. I mean, it was a good game for him on Saturday as well. He had plenty of time on the ball, which is what he likes.
Yeah, no, I'm pretty much in full agreement with every syllable you just uttered, Sammy, top to bottom. In terms of the captaincy bit, look, it's one that's fascinating because ever since TC has become a non-starting 11 fixture, which is, for the record, been a while now.
Yeah.
It doesn't seem like anybody has really, taken the mantle of like, this is our no question leader and no question starter, right? Like, I think even players who have leadership tendencies and leadership ability have not necessarily been the players who are guaranteed set in stone starters based on ability and kind of variable form at times. So I do think that there's something about having a center back be a captain that's always sat well with me. They're somewhat the captain of the defense. You could see them calling out man marking and positions on set piece setups, defensive corner setups, even offensive corner setups to a certain extent. So I think there's like a literal value in it, ability to interact with the referee. Obviously, we learned very quickly about the burned Leno captain experiment in terms of the talk to the referee rule and the sort of oddities that required. But look, I'm optimistic. We brought him back for a somewhat sizable fee. He was a good servant to the club on loan when he was. I know he played quite well for Denmark in the recent international break, so maybe it's not just a blip, but maybe it's the haircut is a reverse Samson, biblically, if you will. Less hair, more power. But I just think he offers solidity, and like, again, we talk about how banal and dull the large parts of that match were. I think our defensive setup deserves a lot of credit for that. If our offense is going to be somewhat impotent to the extent that they were, the fact is we didn't feel under the cosh. We didn't feel just massive amounts of pressure. Oh my God, we're hanging on by fingernails here. Like, it was boring, which is a testament to our defense when our offense and our attack isn't producing to the extent he should. So I think that's a pretty strong endorsement of him. I mean, there's just something about a solid partnership. I mean, we all know how we feel about Bassey. He's a solid performer as well, week in, week out. So if we have genuine solidity at the center back spots, I'm cool with it. I mean, let's keep it going is what I would say. And if that means he's a more permanent captain, I think we'd all very much welcome it to have a bit of security there.
Yeah, that is our third clean sheet in the league of this calendar year. Can you guys name the other two off the top of the head? Anyone?
Gosh, they're few and far between, aren't they? I know that there was one in the last 11 because I saw that stat. I'm trying to think. There must have been a.
One was a London club.
Southampton? Was that? No, that was last.
I was going to say Southampton too.
No, we conceded against them. One's a London club. Big London club. Sessegnon scored.
Spurs 2-0. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And then there was the Leicester City game back in January where we won 2-0 against maybe one of the worst teams.
I have no recollection that game ever happening.
What, the Leicester one?
That was Smith Rowe's date. Oh no, it wasn't. Obviously, it wasn't.
No, I had Sammy James first 50 minutes, the second half coma of that one.
Yeah. No, completely. I mean, look, it just shows that they are incredibly rare. Let's come on to a question about the next part of the defence, the one missing piece of the defence, really, because it does feel like we've got some solidity. Obviously, I mean, Kenny Tete back is fantastic, and looks like Bassey and Anderson are really picking up form. But the left-hand side, still Ryan Sessegnon, who did fine on Saturday, but we are missing Anthony Robinson. Andre Bazile says, it seems Jedi was coming back from injury and he would be a lock to start this week. Is he running into an issue with his recovery? This is an interesting one, Dom, because he looks fine. And he played, he came on against Chelsea. He also came on against Manchester United and looked good. He didn't play for America. I'm just a bit surprised that I don't know. That is a bit concerning, right? Because surely if he was 100% fit, Marco would start him.
Yeah, maybe it's a more of a stamina-related issue in regard to Marco just doesn't think he can last the full 90. He may be back in regard to, he may have recovered from the injury as such, but maybe Marco doesn't think through the pre-season he's had, maybe he's not done, I don't know, the cardio work or whatever it is to the last 90 minutes. Maybe we'll see that over the next coming weeks. I don't think it's been massively noticeable, but it's a massive gap in the team. Maybe Sessegnon doesn't bomb on as much as Robinson does in that regard. We're interested to see what his link up is with the wide options we go with against Brentford. But maybe it's simply a fact as coming in. It may continue like this until the next international break, and then after the next international break, in a month's time when we play at home to Arsenal, that's when Robinson comes back and plays 90 minutes. But it is interesting. But I think for me, it comes across to me that he just can't play 90 minutes yet.
Yeah. This one from Aaron Lamb. I'll get all of you on this one because Aaron's after a little bit of life advice, really. It obviously sounds like he's got a bit of a serious situation, and I think we just need to help him in a moment of trouble. He says, how do I tell my wife I'm in love with a Brazilian guy named Kevin? I mean, I'm also having the same predicament. I don't know what to do about it, but it's Monday. My wife's going to come home from work later, and I'm going to have this conversation with her as well. So
yeah, I actually.
What do we do, Joe?
I was going to say I actually messaged my girlfriend after the game, and I actually said to her, I said, "Look, there's another man. I said, we're going to need to have a talk." And I said, I put his full name in the message. I said, this bloke, he's changed my life. But yeah, I think that's a problem that many Fulham fans are going to have. I was leaving the game and I was saying to my mates, I was going, oh my gosh, I think I'm actually going to be dreaming about Kevin tonight. Like what he's shown us it's phenomenal.
Yeah. I mean, Charlie, they always say never fall in love with a lone player, but I'm also like, do I fall in love with a 22-year-old Brazilian that's clearly going to be sold for 100 million to Barcelona in the summer? Like, that's also a problem.
Yeah. I'd say enjoy the ride, not to be like all serious or anything like that. And I think we should be so lucky to have $100 million player in a few months, years, whatever it ends up being. I just think we've really hit on one, and I can't remember the last time I felt like that. Obviously, ESR was a bit of just a bit of a disappointment last year, and the fact that the impact from Kevin was so direct, so instant, so visceral, was just, there is something so satisfying about it. I love that the crowd was calling out for him. It makes a massive difference, and I need him to be a fixture. Like, that's what I'm going to come back to. I know I mentioned it earlier, but like, if we sit up against Brentford this weekend and it's a Iwobi on the left and Wilson on the right, like, I will genuinely be annoyed. I think that, yes, I get the logic. I get what Marco would say if asked about that in a press conference. Don't get me wrong. But at a certain point, you play your best players. You play your players who offer something different, who can, I imagine Brentford fans are like, God, I hope he doesn't start, which to me is like, then start him, right? So we shall see. But, I think we all deserve a nice, sexy 22-year-old Brazilian in our lives in some way, shape, or form.
I think to directly answer the question, you need to ask your wife, ask her a few questions. I think, first of all, ask her if she can dance the samba. Second of all, ask her if she can sweetly strike a ball into the top corner. And third of all, ask her if she can do a rainbow flick. And if she can do all of them things, then perhaps there's a conversation to be had. But at the minute, I think all of our focus needs to be on Kevin.
Too right. I mean, this one's a follow-up on the left-sided question, Dom. Luke Resch says he thought Kevin linked up particularly well with Sess on a few occasions. Is there any way at all we can see that partnership more while having Robinson at left-back, or do you think it's simply a case of Sess on for Robinson later in the game? I mean, it has to be said, Dom, that they did have a little bit of chemistry. Obviously, Sess sent that tweet calling Kevin warm in capital letters after the match. Yeah, I mean, it's a potential option, right? Is that maybe Sess and Kevin is a nice little partnership down the left. It seemed to work.
Yeah, so we finally moved on from what sounds like an episode of Friday Club on Under the Cosh to back talking Fulham on this podcast. But I don't know. I think Luke big bring it up, and he brings it up rightly, because they definitely do have a good relationship, whereas off the field or on the pitch, they connected really well. The connections they were having in regard to the pass they were making, the team in general understanding what kind of runs that he was trying to make, which I think helped by having that kind of 2-week bedding in period during the international window. But it's an interesting point to make, but I think there's no reason what Cess and Kevin were doing, Robinson can't do the exact same. I think actually with Robinson coming in, you'll probably see him going down the line less and more trying to come inside of Robinson on the overlap. But I think it's good to see, because when we signed Sessegnon last summer, a lot of people probably unsure, like, what are we signing here? Are we signing the Sessegnon we had when he left the club in 2019, or are we signing a player who can actually make an impact in this team? And yes, it took a while, but I think we're really seeing now that Silva sees Sessegnon as a key part of this squad, and he didn't just bring him back because it's a place where he's loved, but we're actually seeing a Sessegnon who can compete at the highest level. So I think it also takes the pressure of Anthony Robinson, having to play 35, 38 games a season, where we have an option in Ryan Sessegnon off the bench, and he's also obviously still an option in the wide positions as well. And I would also be interested to see a team with Kevin on one side and Sessegnon on the other, and also see how that works as two wingers who even could overlap and cross each other off on swapping opposition wings as well.
Joe, this one from Richard Sol Bamber, to give him his correct full title, says, thoughts on atmosphere this season? It seems better despite that woeful match on Saturday. Appreciate only 2 matches in. I'm going to slightly disagree with Sol, and I rarely do this. I thought it was bad on Saturday. I thought that obviously it got better in the last 15 minutes when Kevin came on, and I thought it was all right. Admittedly, yeah, I think the United atmosphere was quite good. I don't know. I still felt it was very, very flat. And, it was interesting. The club did that atmosphere survey, which I don't know if the questions in it were the exact right questions for me. I still filled it in because we desperately need to improve the atmosphere at Craven Cottage. I don't know. What were your thoughts? I slightly disagree. I didn't think it was that great.
Yeah. As you say, for United, I thought it was really good. For yesterday's game, I was actually quite near the back row of H5, so I feel like that automatically kind of gives you a better sense of atmosphere of what's going on around you. But I think that, to be honest, the team didn't help with the atmosphere. Obviously if the team's playing better, then the fans are going to get behind them, and maybe that's a poor reflection on us as fans that we're not kind of going and lifting the team. I think that atmosphere issues are only going to get addressed. Like, we can do, as fans sitting kind of in the hammy, and we can do as much as we can to try and sing more, but that is not going to help make our atmosphere good by any means. And you mentioned that the club put out that survey, but I think there's some clear things that can be done. I mean, easy things that could and should be done to make the atmosphere better. I think one thing that I'm a big advocate for is safe standing. I'd really like to actually see safe standing in the Putney end. I think that end in particular, obviously we could go on and on about the issues in the Riverside stand, but I think the Putney end, what annoys me so much is when you see a goal go in there and opposition fans jumping up in our end. I think put safe standing in the Putney and put some proper, I say proper Fulham fans, but Fulham fans who are willing to sing, create an atmosphere over there beside the away fans. And you need singing in every section to translate onto the pitch. I mean, we lose so much sound via the Riverside stand because they don't sing. I mean, you might get a come on Fulham every now and again, but there's no proper chants, and you can't have a great kind of cathedral atmosphere when all sound is kind of being lost from one side. And I think if we can try and enclose it a little bit, get some singing in the Putney, and then we'll be better off. But yeah, I think for me yesterday, where I was, it was all right, but we'll see as the season goes on, I guess.
Yeah. Finally, let's get everyone's thoughts on this. I enjoyed this question from George Rossiter, our player ratings Supremo, who says, since Kevin has gathered so much excitement, can we rank the previous Fulham Brazilians in terms of impact on the club and their performances for us? So obviously we're going to discount Kevin from this, even though, because obviously he'd be going straight to number one, even despite 15 minutes on the pitch. So we've got 5 And I think this is an exhaustive list of Brazilians that have played at Fulham, although I was kind of surprised to see that it was only 5. Lucas Piazon, Rodrigo Muniz, Carlos Vinicius, Andreas Pereira, and Willian. So we all need to agree on this. So who are we putting? Should we start from bottom up?
So George is just saying this is on impact.
Impact on the club and their performances for us. So I guess like someone like Lucas Piazon, for example, you could obviously say not the most impact on the pitch, but was a bit of a like cult hero.
Yeah, and then you know, as much as Vinicius didn't do anything else for the club, he did score a win against Chelsea. So
yeah,
exactly.
Puts him high.
I always say I'm one of, if not the only Fulham fan with Carlos Vinicius on the back of a top. So he makes his way up my estimations for that goal alone. But I think
we got to put AP1, right? I mean, at a certain level in terms of the longevity, the level at which he contributed, and Jack Collins is out there.
I would have him bottom.
I was going to say I'd probably have Andreas Pereira.
I feel like if we're being reasonable, probably Lucas Piazon, as much as I thought he was a legend, and you know I've got a soft spot for him because we interviewed him at his house and Jack Collins spilt Strongbow dart fruits on his dog. Another story for another time. But he probably has to go at the bottom, right? Like he scored like maybe a goal against Reading.
Yeah, that goal against Reading is probably the highlight. As I said, I think he was much more bigger figure in the dressing room, but.
Okay, I'm putting my foot down that you can't have Andreas last below Piazon.
Okay, I'll have Piazon, but I'm not. You know, if you're talking about impact, Vinicius scored a goal against Chelsea. I didn't see Andreas do that. All Andreas did was not beat his first man from a corner every week.
Not to kick up a fuss either. But I noticed the other day we never got any sort of farewell post from Andreas.
What, by Andreas himself?
Yeah.
Interesting. I definitely think Andreas. I'm against. I'm thinking Andreas. I don't think this is a slight on Andreas that I don't think he's made as big an impact as Willian, Vinicius just because of Chelsea, and then Muniz, who's like.
Yeah, because as much as you know, most fans definitely didn't rate Vinicius. I think if you're doing it on impact at the club, like people are going to remember that Vinicius goal. They're not going to remember many things Andreas Pereira did.
And I think Vinicius actually stepped up in a time of need as well when Mitrovic got suspended. Like, I remember when Mitrovic came back, there was actually a conversation about can we drop Carlos Vinicius, which sounds crazy kind of looking back on. But he did do a slight job, whereas I'm struggling to remember a time. And I actually liked Andreas. I liked his tenacity and his work ethic. And I've realised now we are arguing about who had a bigger impact at the club out of Andreas Pereira and Carlos Vinicius. And obviously it probably is Pereira. But in terms of moments, I can't remember Pereira kind of providing.
Yeah, I'm not.
Pereira did get the assist.
Yeah, but I'm not going to have Pereira above Willian or Muniz. No chance.
Okay, so I think just from I'm being the mediator here. We'll put Pereira 4th, Vinicius 3rd, right? Even as good as Chelsea was, surely Willian and Muniz go above him. So, who is 1 in this list of all-time Fulham Brazilians between Muniz and Willian? Who's had the bigger impact at the club?
Muniz, who scored away at Chelsea.
Yeah, that's true. I think. But I guess Willian scored at home at Chelsea.
Yeah, I was going to say, William scored at home, yeah.
Yeah, but it was a last-minute winner, first win at Bridge in how many, 40, 50 years, whenever it was, yeah.
I think in moments, Muniz has given me a day out, which is up there with my wedding day, potentially. I think it's easier for me to say that as I've not had it yet, so I'm in big quarters.
Overrated. It's overrated.
The birth of your first child.
Yeah.
And all of them.
I can throw it all out there now. But I think, for me, I enjoyed watching Willian so much. And when I look back to that first season, Willian is kind of the player I remember. Like, I really enjoyed watching him. But I think that Muniz will eclipse that. And hopefully, I mean, we've mentioned Kevin as well. But I love Muniz. And we've got the chant for him as well. I mean, I remember the away days where it would just be that on repeat, the Borough chant on repeat. Like, he is a bit of a cult hero. So I don't know.
Yeah.
Okay. For Rodrigo.
Yeah, that's the list then. It's an unfortunate bottom place for Lucas Piazon, despite being a bit of a legend. Andreas Pereira, we know he deserves to be higher up the list, but he's been pipped by Vinicius because of Chelsea at home. And then we've gone for Willian in second because he made a big impact in his 2 different spells at the club. And then obviously Rodrigo Muniz at the top. George Roster, thank you very much for the question. That is the perfect way to end the show today. All we need to do, Mr. Dominic Betts, is to name the podcast. What would you like to go for, sir?
I'm just still thinking. I think I'm going to go with William Harrison's Feels Like Kevin.
Yeah, had to be. And by the way, our inbox for This Will Catch On is, I think we're having to delete some old emails. That's how many This Will Catch Ons are coming in for pretty much solidly Kevin. So yeah, the October edition of This Will Catch On and the battle to win the cruise is hotting up big time. So yeah, keep sending those in. hello@fulhamish.co.uk. There's going to be a Jack and Joe show on the podcast feed on Tuesday, Wednesday. We'll get that out. And then a Thursday club with myself and Jack Collins looking ahead to the derby against Brentford on Saturday night at 8 p.m. That is going to be a big, big game. Thank you very much to my guest today, to Charlie Kipp. Thank you, over in the States.
Oh, running off with a 22-year-old Brazilian. Thank you, Sammy.
Make sure you check out Charlie's Full America pod also last week with him and Ben Jarman. Everything on Fulham from a North American perspective. Joe Gunning, thank you.
Yep, thank you for having me. Been a pleasure.
And Dom, thank you.
No worries, Sammy, mate.
Have a lovely start to your week. Come on, you Whites.